Welcome to the Allegrativity Powercast with Allegra Sinclair. Get ready to punch fear in the throat, show up, and tell your story. Allegra Sinclair is here to help you become the powerful woman you are meant to be. It's finally time to get unstuck and reveal how fabulous you are. And it's time for your host, Allegra Sinclair.
Hey, this is Allegra, and I wanted to do a quick intro to these next two episodes of the podcast. I had the joy and privilege of spending time with the epic Kim Doyal, also known as the WordPress chick, but our conversation went for about an hour and a half. So what I've done is I cut the podcast into two pieces so that you'll enjoy part of it today and then come back in 2 days and you can enjoy the fabulous rest. So I'm doing a little tease before you please, but I'm warning you in advance. So I hope that's okay. Without further ado, please enjoy the first half of my conversation with Kim. Hey, this is Allegra. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Allegrativity Powercast. I am excited beyond belief about today's guest. I'm excited for so many different reasons, but A, you're going to love her. She's like our kind of people. She is funny, sassy, fierce, fearless. She has all this delicious stuff wrapped up in one delightful package.
But it's the best intro ever. Go ahead.
But I'm also excited because in addition to being a fan of hers, I also now get to call her like friend and mentor and coach. And okay, I'm just going to introduce her because I just don't want to delay it anymore. With me today is Kim Doyal, the WordPress chick. You've probably heard of her. The WordPress chick is a leading expert on using WordPress to market businesses online. She teaches, blogs, podcasts, and creates all sorts of delicious stuff with WordPress. She's a published author, movie producer, and artist, and her motto is WordPress happiness made easy. Kim develops custom solutions to meet the needs for a variety of entrepreneurs and business models, and with her extensive marketing skills, she's helped her clients transform their lives and their businesses and achieve the income, success, and freedom they truly desire. I know you guys want more of that because I sure want some of that.
I'm all, hey, who is that?
Please help me welcome the fabulous Kim Doyal.
What's up, Allegra? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to come on and chat. We have been talking about this for what, a year?
At least, yeah.
Well, good things come to those who wait. So did I miss anything in my intro that you really want my audience to know about before we kind of jump right in?
No, it's funny as you were reading that, I was thinking my other motto truly is, if it's not fun, I'm not doing it. And I live my life by that now.
I think you should put that on like, well, first of all, it should be on Pinterest so we could repin it. But I also think it should be like, a graphic you could put on your phone.
Oh my gosh, totally.
Like, if it's not fun, I'm not doing it. I like that.
I wonder if there's a way that we could trigger that when certain people call. So then you go, oh yeah, you're not fun. I'm just kidding.
You know what would be funny? So you know how on your phone, if someone calls, you can set up messages that you can just touch the phone and it will send them that message instead of you having to answer. That would be cool if instead of saying, I'm on my way or I'll get right back to you, it could say, you're not fun. Sorry.
Yeah. Or if you don't have anything fun to say, hang up.
Or just, oh, bummer. Catch me next time.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
So one of the things that I was most excited for us to share is, so there are several lessons I know that I have learned from you over the last year or so, but one of the ones that I say all the time is, you just have to be willing to be you. So I think I had heard that message before, but I hadn't heard it in the way that you shared it, and I hadn't translated that into how I might make a living or how I might impact people's lives. So tell me a little bit about what made you comfortable enough or confident enough to start really being you?
Years of not being myself and feeling like I was working my tail off and not getting the results. And so, and you kind of, it's one of those things that I think you kind of baby step into. So part of that premise, part of what brought me there was as I got involved in WordPress, I'm not a coder. I'm not a programmer. I definitely can do my own damage at this point. But that's not my happy spot. I like the teaching, the training, the connecting, the creating piece, right? And I just wasn't sure where I fit into this space. And it was a space that I loved, but I did a lot of the who am I, even when I started creating videos and tutorials, I did not know how to use Camtasia, but stepping into that and still feeling like where do I fit in this space, right? And I made a conscious choice like 2 years ago, and I said, that's it. I am just going to start showing up. And just show up is another mantra. Clearly I've got a bunch, but, and it was also a lot of intense work with my own mentor. But what happened is as soon as I put more of me into everything I did, my business took off. Because, I'm not somebody, I use the term snarky all the time. And I've got a very sarcastic side, but I'm never going to show up and be mean, right? And I want to bring my energy and enthusiasm for the fact that I've created a great quality of life. I love what I do. I've got amazing connections and friendships all over the world. I mean, look at this. I mean, we're in different parts of the country. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I love what I do. And I knew that I needed to just be myself. And that's when things took off, truly. And it was scary, but like I said, I kind of baby stepped into it. And it was when I started the podcast, because with my podcast, I was like, how am I going to talk about something that I tend to do from such a visual perspective, right? But then I was like, well, forget it. My intro says no boring code snippets here because code is boring to me. I am not code is poetry. I am so grateful there are people that it is poetry for. I'm not one of them. I like stuff that looks good, that's fun, all of that stuff. And I consider myself a marketer through and through first. But so when I started the podcast, I again, didn't know what I was doing. I tend to be a leap and then look. I just knew it was something I wanted to do. And I just started being myself. And I would get people saying to me all the time, you're so funny, or, oh my gosh, I use a lot of self-deprecating humor, but just talking to them about my struggles, my challenges, my triumphs, the wins, what I would do differently, and then just pulling in my own sense and my journey. And things have blown up since then. And so it's, I love this quote from Seth Godin. I saw him at a conference last year, and it just resonates to the core of me. And it's be willing to be a category of one. Right? There's so much information. It's beautiful, isn't it? What doesn't he say that is cool? But there's so much information online today. There's so many opportunities. There's so many people that you could do business with. So the way that you're going to stand out and get business is your own uniqueness. It's like, be uniquely yourself. And then your right tribe, those people, they'll flock to you. It's not that hard. And I don't want to go super woo-woo here, but truly it's like, our job in this life is to do, to set those intentions and live and go for it. And that thing inside you that burns and drives you, that's our job. The universe will take care of bringing the people. Of course, you have to show up and do the work. So it's not about just, hi, I'm happy, I love what I'm doing. You have to do the work and the due diligence. However, when you do it from that right place, life just flows.
So there was so much juicy deliciousness in that. I want to go back and just make I'm just going to take a couple of slices out. So one of the things that I have found in, I'd say overall in life, but especially in the last year is, I think when we were talking about rebranding my site, and I can't remember if I ever had a tagline before, but when I changed the site and made the tagline, punch fear in the throat, show up and tell your story, it was after a conversation with you, because it wasn't that I was making a conscious decision not to be me, but I kind of looked around in the universe and I was figuring out how to build a business and how to start telling my story, but in a universe where there was a lot of sameness, which I interpreted as the right way to be successful. So it wasn't that I specifically said, I don't want to be full on Allegra, but when I thought about what I wanted my site to look like or the emotion that I wanted people to get when they came to the site, and I remember I had a site in the Studio Press showcase at the time, and you and I were talking, and you were looking at the site, and you're like, yeah, it's beautiful, and it had butterflies, and it had soft colors. Do you remember? I'm telling on myself, so it's okay. It's okay. I'm telling on myself, right? So what is that? Kevin Hart says, you don't have to be afraid of people if you tell your own foolishness. So it had butterflies and it had soft colors. And I was like, oh, and I just like this whole like warm, evocative, like soft, feminine, elegant thing. And you and I had talked a couple times, and then you looked at the site, and you, in your kind, soft and gentle way, were trying to get to, okay, the person I'm talking to on the phone right now is all sorts of spicy and sassy. Could you help me figure out why this spicy person is over here all soft and delicate and butterflies? And I was like, oh, but you don't understand. I love butterflies. My grandmother called me man and butterfly. Like, yep, got all that. If somebody wants to come to your site and get a feel for you, and they get like the soft, gentle, quiet, soft-spoken website, and then they see you, how do you think that will make people feel? And I was like, see, this chick ain't gonna make it because she's asking me questions based in logic that I don't want to deal with because I loved my old site. I thought it was pretty. So I do understand.
But it wasn't Allegra. Go ahead.
Well, see, so
which
again,
that sounds bad, but you know what I mean.
Decision not to be me, right? But I didn't necessarily know what full on me looked or felt like because there are a lot of people who are basically going through the paces and sleepwalking through their lives. So if you spent most of your life in corporate, you don't find a lot of people in the halls of corporations at any level of success. You don't find people saying, oh man, I just have to be me, right? I'm just bringing all of me to whatever the situation is. So that was just alien to my life experience. So when you're saying that you kind of baby stepped into it and you made a conscious decision to start being more who you were, and then when things took off, that's great. But are there a couple of steps in there, or could you kind of shed a little bit more light on how you went from where you were to kind of the full on?
Completely. Yeah, okay. No, totally. It was, and I'll have to send you the links if anyone wants to see these. It all started from a Skype conversation with a good friend of mine. And we were on Skype, and I don't recall what was the catalyst for this, mind you. And just a little kind of background to this. I've always been really big into, I don't want to say self-help, but just, I want to live a full life, right? So I have every intention of living this self-actualized life and living a big life. And I'm not talking about things and money, but I want great experiences and I go for it, right? So I've always been somebody who looks there. At the same time, it wasn't until I started looking within myself that I was like, whoa, there's some stuff going on here. Okay, so there's kind of that personal work that always goes on in the background. And I could just tell, if whatever that looks like to each person, however you want to explore that or open that door, just we're never done. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's strange to me that we understand that, say, the first 20 years of our lives, we're growing and we're changing, and at 20, we're not going to like what we liked at 12. I don't understand why all of a sudden that stops when we go out into the adult working world, right? So you hit 24, 25, and it's like, well, I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago. And so I'm constantly like changing who I am in terms of where I'm at and what feels right. I let that evolve. So to me, that's kind of the foundation to stepping into this in your business, that you have to be willing to look at stuff and say, I used to love that, but that's not what I want anymore. Take the WordPress chick. I used to have a little chick on there, not like a girl, a woman.
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't remember any.
Box. Yeah, no, I was like, let's reiterate this. Loved her. Great little illustration. The site's gone through a couple iterations and stuff. My colors were kind of blue and orange and white. I loved the site. It was great. And then it's time to show up as Kim Doyal online. And not that I was hiding behind the WordPress chick. It was a great name. It's been awesome branding. But I had other stuff to say, right? I knew that my business does not revolve solely on WordPress. It is the core and the heart, but I like talking about a lot of other things. So when I realized that, I was like, okay, well, let's start stepping into this. So the first thing I would do in terms of like tangible steps for somebody is write a post and from the place of like sharing an experience. Like you kind of have to step into the vulnerability piece, right? So maybe you're not ready to share a story that at one point was really heavy in your life and you attached a lot of shame to it. Because that's the other thing I've learned. Like, I don't even look at stuff as good and bad anymore. I'm like, they're just experiences and I move on. But it has taken a lot of work to do that. Trust me. But so if you come from the place of writing a post, so here's an example. I'm just going to take your business, jumping off, you talk about a lot that's going on online and podcasting and social media and all these different things. You also come from these life stories. Well, what would it look like? And maybe you've done this, and I apologize. I don't have all your content in my head.
What?
but what was the hardest, most scary decision about leaving corporate and stepping out into doing something on your terms? So, there's a process involved in that. And so I think in sharing what scared you, did it keep you up at night? And, because of course what happened, the drama is always just in our head. The world doesn't fall on us, I'm at a point, I'm like, hey, my kids are alive and healthy. I'm alive and healthy. I'm good. Life's okay. My parents, everything else is just stuff, really. So when it's the people that I love are all well and happy and life is good. But I'm saying, so maybe if that's not something you've shared, that's a way to connect with your audience. Like, hey, I did this too, and some of my first few episodes, which I should probably pull one out again, is I shared what I would do different if I were starting my business today. Shared getting fired from a job that I was like this star employee from. And of course, the Catholic in me has to pre-qualify. It wasn't like I was stealing. I was actually paying somebody out of my pocket to work off the clock because we didn't have enough payroll. So it's kind of an ass back, right? So it's not something but I was horrified because I literally was like this, I was traveling and training and all this great stuff. However, I wouldn't be here today. I know that without a doubt that I never would have left that job, right? So, and the experiences and people I know and what it's done for the relationship with my kids who are now, almost 18 and 14. And by the way, both want to be entrepreneurs. It's just what it's done for me. So it's like stepping into that first almost exposure. And so you pick that element of what's kind of scary, but I'm just going to put it out there, right? And so that's and because you do that once and you realize, wow, it touches people, or nobody's bad mouthing me, or you know what I'm saying? Again, all the drama's in our head. So I would step into something that feels a little bit tricky and might be hard to do and share it and how it relates to your business. Like, I swear everything in my life is a blog post now. Everything. Every single time I talk to a coaching client, I'm all, that's a blog post, right? Right. So that what you're telling me is another blog post because
I have heard that.
Mm-hmm. Well, because it might solve someone else's problem. And so when you go through something and you learn, or it's not even, I don't mean a learning lesson, but it's like, oh my gosh, I don't have to do things that way. Share it. There's there's an infinite amount of content out there.
I think this could be like a series of 4 episodes. You just might have to come back. Like, what's that child's name? Dr. Oz used to go on Oprah all the time.
Oh, I get to be a featured guest?
You have to be like a featured guest.
Okay.
But I think so I have a couple of, I won't call them clients yet. A couple of people I'm chatting with to see if we're a good fit. And a couple of them aren't even online yet. They're not even blogging yet. So everybody doesn't have to have the end destination or part of their journey being creating a blog. That doesn't have to be the destination. However, if they don't want to do something online to like tell their story, then I'm probably not the person for them, right? Because that is what I do. But so when you're talking about writing a blog post, I really counsel people, even before you get to the blog post page, just write the story. Because I think the fascinating part is if you have punched fear in the throat so it will hush, that silence can't stay empty, right? So I've talked several times about the fact that if you really work hard to remove a bad habit, you have to work simultaneously on filling that space with a good habit, because your life can't handle empty spaces. It will help you by creating stuff to fill the empty space, right? So if you have decided that, okay, I'm going to show up and be more me, or hey, maybe someone's just making a decision to like figure out who they really are. Because what you said about people worry about whether people will accept what they've said or not, but what really drives you will drive your tribe to you and they will stay there. I think that as I started, maybe I was 35 years old. I've been working since I was 13, so maybe that was my midlife crisis at 35. But when I really started trying to figure out, okay, what did I want to be when I grew up, kind of, it probably took me 2 or 3 years of, okay, that's too painful to even think about, because I realized around that time that I really had no idea. I had spent my entire life following a path that had been laid out for me that I really wasn't completely bought into. It's kind of like when I was in college and I was getting ready to take my pre-law courses, and all of a sudden I had that moment when I was like, crap on a cracker, I don't want to be a lawyer. Right? Everything I had done until that moment, I had been preparing to be a lawyer, and then I worked at a law firm. And then when I got back to school and started taking pre-law courses, I was like, oh my, I don't know what I'm going to do because I know I don't want to do that. So I think I don't underestimate the challenge to try to figure out who you are and why you're here. And I don't try to rush that process. But if you're in that space and you've decided that you want to figure that out, I just want people to really feel like it's okay to figure out who they are and to have that person show up. Because as you said, your tribe will find you and they'll stay. But also, I believe that when you decide to be who you really are and tell your story, not other people's story, but your story, that it does get big. And I don't mean big like in an overwhelming way, like, all of a sudden you're like, paparazzi are chasing you. That's not what I mean. What I mean when I say big is, it is fulfilling. It is satisfying. It is not the appetizer, but it's like the entire.
No, it's soul filling.
Exactly. Right. Because I think for me, a lot of the work that I did in corporate was the appetizer. It was awesome soup, but it was soup. And other people probably want some meat, maybe some bread, and maybe chocolate. So soup can be amazing soup, but now I'm more driven by the opportunity. I really take seriously the responsibility and the opportunity to help people figure out what their story is so that they can tell that, right? So it was fascinating when you're talking about what drives you so your tribe will show up. It drives me helping other people figure out what that story is and then helping them tell it. I love that. So it's funny when you're talking about podcasting and worrying about talking about something that's really visual, but using audio to do it. And to me, that wasn't a hesitation for me because I think a lot of the work, I don't really want people to look at something. I want them to kind of look within, right? Because sometimes when you're seeing an image, it distracts you from what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Well, maybe that's just me.
Well, no, but I think you're right with that too. And at the same time, I think I have fully accepted the fact that you totally, me, meaning like, girl, you cannot multitask the way you think you can. And, there are certain things that I can do, yeah, I can listen to a podcast and work out, right? I can do that. But the thing is, there's something about when it is like what I love about podcasting is people really get to know you. So unless, you want to do, and I say this on my podcast all the time, and I'm doing it now. I totally talk with my hands. And so that's just a little more insight into my personality. But the beauty of just audio is, it is sort of that focused, I don't know, like you're going right into the core with people. And so I agree with you that there's so many things I need to do. And I'm not going to walk somebody through a tutorial, about WordPress on a podcast. What I do is I talk about tools and resources and business. And so there's so much more to what I do that it made sense. And, it's funny as you were talking about figuring out what you want to do. Gosh, easy for me to say. When you grow up is, it's interesting that like I've always known that I was going to have this big life. I felt it and I've been through a lot in my life. But as a kid, like I wanted to be, a graphic designer. And so how I was able to pull everything in, I've always wanted to speak. And I spoke at my high school graduation. I did all these things and it's kind of come full circle. However, up until, starting this business 8 years ago, I fully was living the life I thought I was expected to live. 2 kids, married in suburbia, all this stuff. And then for me, losing my husband in 2003, it was like, that happens to other people, not you. But then just continuing on the same path, just without him. And it was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a part of the herd. And that's not a judgment at people who live that. But for myself, it felt so heavy, like the rest of my life doing what was expected of me. And then the problem is that so much of the crap that keeps us in places we don't want to be is because, I remember, even as an adult looking at different jobs and stuff and getting my parents' opinion, who I love and adore and cherish, but this is my life, and what works for me and what a gift me choosing to step out and do this has been to these kids. And so Again, the experiences in my life are phenomenal. And nobody I know in my day-to-day life lives this way or does this kind of stuff. And so it's being willing to be that category of one. And it's funny when you were doing the food analogy, love that. You know what I was, you know what I love? I was thinking, I'm like, I want my business, I want everything I do to be an Italian meal where they just sit and relish. And I've been to Italy and one of my best friends' husband's Italian. And it's like, there's no rush. They enjoy every course. They take their time. They sip their wine. They are so fully present. And maybe that's a big generalization, but like, I want my business and my life to be like a big Italian meal where you're so present, right? Every bite, everything is just that deliciousness like you were referring to.
It is so funny to me because I don't eat a lot, right? So I think I've talked before about low thyroid. So I'm not hungry most of the time, but I'm so often talking about food in like such like word picture kind of, I mean, it's almost like a love song the way I talk about food, but it's also universal. It's easy for people to understand. So I think one of the other challenges I had when I first started talking about, okay, I'm going to be a confidence coach for women. And I have men who listen. So let me just acknowledge that. Hey guys. But, I had a couple people either send me private emails or write on Facebook and say, hey, well, you said you're talking to women and I'm a guy, so I guess you don't want to hear my opinion. And for like 3 seconds, I thought to myself, oh, should I have not said that I was talking to women? But then in the very next second, I mean, it really didn't last very long. In the very next second, I was like, if you're getting something from this and you're a guy, I think that's great. But really, most of the time, I'm not talking to you, and that's okay. Someone else will, right? Because I think as you were talking about how you're an adult and you're running like job decisions or other like grown-up decisions that, you know, grown-ups make for themselves every day past parents, I think that is especially prevalent in women. There is just something about having ovaries that forever ties us to that approval that comes from our mom, right? So it's one of those moments that just made me giggle because I'm like, that one of the reasons why I thought, yeah, I want to talk to women is A, I just have a heart for women because I get it. I am one. But B, there are things, and I have lots of people in my universe who are male, who pour into my life, and it's great. But there is just that, there's just nothing like another woman understanding issues or barriers or obstacles. It's kind of like the show where I was talking about wearing a red bra. If you could have seen some of the comments, the guys were like, yeah, I don't get it. And I was like, sweetheart, that's why I wasn't talking to you. Because every woman who, right? I'm just saying, every woman who heard me talking about the power of the red bra was immediately like, well, mine's leopard. Oh, okay. Right? So maybe it wasn't red, but we got it because we know that little giggle, that little boost of confidence that we get when underneath whatever we have on, we're like, if they only knew what was happening under here, and the confidence that that gives us. So I do think that when you were talking about how it used to be like an actual woman graphic on your thing, the WordPress chick, I think there is a lot of power in being a confident marketer and being female. Because it sounds ridiculous to say in 2015, but there are a lot of circles where women are still diminished. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's true. The other day, somebody said that, I can't remember who I was talking to, but somebody was saying they had worked with one of their coworkers for like 5 or 7 years and they didn't know the coworker had children. And they thought, oh, how weird that the coworker wouldn't let people know she had children. Was she like, you know, did she not like her children? I was like, oh, wait, pump the brakes. Maybe the rest of you don't have children. Do you have children? She's like, no. I was like, so she has children and the rest of you don't. In her work environment, maybe she knows through example that if she has children, she'll be seen differently. She won't be taken seriously. She won't get opportunities. She won't be able to be promoted. So I don't necessarily think she hates her children, the reason that she didn't tell you she has kids. I think there's something else going on probably in her environment that made her not share that.
And I'm going to jump in there really quick.
Yeah. Because
here is the beauty of the self-involved narcissist that I want to say that person was in terms of, did you ever ask? Where is it? See, and this is, gosh, so perfect for even online is I refer to sort of the old school marketers when I see people who only share their own content and look what I'm doing and but they never share another link unless it's somebody they're promoting who they've coached or something. But it's like they share nothing else for fear of competition or whatever. And it's, to me, that's just asinine. It is not, are you so afraid? It's not all about you. End story, right? So why was it her responsibility, to share that? I mean, did they ever just simply say, so do you have kids? Or, what is that work environment like? I mean, it's not really a black and white, answer to me. There's a lot of gray in there. And I agree with you that, well, what is the purpose of that? And unfortunately, there is still this perception. It's interesting when you were saying that. I was thinking about this client I had who, it's funny because we didn't design the site, but I was referencing my site and I'm like, okay, well, one, I'm not going to ask you your opinion, but whatever. Like I wasn't asking for it, but saying that maybe I shouldn't use, cause I've got sort of that pinky salmon color with the green and the blue, right? And it's telling me that, maybe that would turn men off or something. And I was like, it doesn't, because I've got a ton of men on my list and who follow me and stuff. And it was funny, but I was like, I'm not interested in your opinion. You're not in my space. You're not in my business. You don't know who I'm targeting. And again, I do what feels good to me. I was telling my daughter this, who's 17, and she goes, how about not worry about men? Like, right? So the point is, it's just like this being, and I'll tell you what, because even in looking at this client site who we didn't design, and I would never own it, but I mean, we're talking, I'm going to get snarky here. This is the side of me, but it's, the gradients from the 90s and just stuff that's just dated. But the point is, if you're going to, when you know who you are and how you want to show up and who you're talking to, spend some time on that and dive in. And here's the thing is it's going to be an evolution. So when you're talking about, stepping into doing confidence coaching for women, okay, well, I started doing coaching about 1.5 years ago. It has evolved day by day in terms of what it looks like, how I do it, the type of environment, the type of structure that I put behind that. Is that something that I want to continue doing one-on-one? I don't know. Is it something I want to do in maybe just the mastermind?
Like small groups. Okay.
Which is what we're doing now, but I still do one-on-one coaching, but it's going to be a really, is it a right connection? Because, and this might lead into something else, but in terms of the online space and women and how they show up and whatnot, it's amazing to me, the mastermind that I'm in, where I pay my mentors, to see men who have no qualms saying, just closed a $56,000 sale from, 1,000 feet in the air on my way home from a trip or whatever. Or they talk about the numbers and they talk about their wins. And they talk about their successes and the dollars and stuff. And then it seems so much smaller, the percentage of women who do that, who talk about the dollars and who talk about the numbers.
Why is that? I agree. And I think so. And if you do talk about the numbers, I'm talking women here, it's like other women seem offended by that. So I don't quite understand that. So it's kind of like the whole, we don't want to be sold, but we love to buy a little bit. But I'm like, I don't know when wanting to earn good money became a bad thing.
Well, and why is it, I always go back to the analogy of the quote unquote offline business, which most brick and mortar buildings, business, or whatever you want to look at it, have an online presence now. But let's take Safeway grocery store, right? Right behind my house. Do I walk in their doors and get pissed off because they've got a table of cookies for sale? Like, the cookies don't belong right where I walk in, right? But I don't get pissed. Do I get angry when I check out and there's gum and magazines at the cash register? No. So why is it when I've been providing free content online and video tutorials that the second I send an email out that says, hey, I'm doing this, here's a link if you'd want to sign up, she promotes herself too much. Get the F off my list. I'm in business. I'm just saying,
yeah.
Right. And I'm going to keep tangenting. Just, I'm so sorry, but I owned a retail scrapbook store from 98 to 2000 with somebody. What do you think our costs for doing business were monthly that had nothing to do with the return on the investment of selling the products, right? So you've got rent, you have overhead, you've got, your CAM charges for the lease, you've got PG&E and, your lights and all those.
I was about to say, what's that?
Yeah, utilities. California utilities. So you start looking at all of those things. you need to market and promote it in order just to sell the scrapbook stuff, right? So why is it that I'm supposed to blog and do webinars and free challenges and courses and engage with people for free, but then they get pissed off or offended when I offer something of value for sale? You know, I'm not over on my site doing things or emailing people. You know, what I do is all online marketing and WordPress and lead generation and scaling a business that creates the life you want, because I'm not going to pull that piece out anymore either. But, you know, I get it if I send you an email, you know, for a yoga mat. That's not, you might get pissed because that's not what you signed up for. That I get. But at the end of the day, I'm so tired of this. People have to, they spend so much energy masquerading the sale, right? Because we don't want to actually say we're selling something. So I'm going to create all of this activity and love, and I'm going to show up free once a week, and we're just going to do stuff that feels good, and I'm going to make you happy, and then I'm going to let you, you know, in a roundabout way, join my $27 a month program. Well, that's not going to pay my mortgage. It makes me crazy. And I don't understand why men get out there and they're like, hey, we get results. This high ticket weekend, it's 10 grand, but we're going to sit down and we're going to map it out and you're going to walk away with da. We do, you know, but women, it's like we have to paint it in such a way that we don't want it to come across. You know, it's all this positioning, and positioning is important and marketing is important. But I'm just at this point, and see, this is part of my process, is that I'll get through the ranting and then I'll find that, well, I don't mean just on the call, but like I'm still working through this clearly, right? Because there's a conflict obviously in me about standing up and saying this. However, I've also gotten to a point where, you know, I will never, ever, 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 ever again do X amount of hours of work for somebody's site. I've got a team that I can literally hand that off to, but guess what? I do not want to inherit someone else's mess. It is never, ever proved to be of value to me. I end up resenting the customer. It's not the space I want to be in. I want to go, you know, full bore, full tilt boogie. Let's do the whole thing, or we're not going to do it. Because that way, when we do the full thing, I get to show up as me and say, hey, where can I help you shine, right? Because that's where I've developed that within myself. So it's kind of like when we were talking, and do you know how many Allegra sayings I keep using all the time? Jesus, take the wheel. Never heard it.
They are called Allegra-isms.
Allegra-isms. Yes. But I'm just like, so that was part of it for me, that it was like this screaming thing in my face, like, okay, your site is not Jesus, take the wheel, girl. And you need to be you and get that showing up there. So that was a super crazy tangent, but I'm kind of on a mission. I want women to step into this in a way that works for them. So hear me, my heart too. Another Allegra-ism is that I don't think that we need to show up as the guys. And the way I show up and talk about money is going to be different for you, but I'm going to start showing up and talking about it. I'm really tired of this.
I love it how Kim giggles even when she's annoyed. So I warned you that I was going to cut it off in the middle in order to be respectful of time. So believe it or not, I am going to stop right there. I just want to smack myself. But I'm going to go ahead and stop right there. Please come back in a couple days and listen to the second half. So if you want to catch the show notes for this particular episode, please visit allegrasinclair.com/28. Again, that's allegrasinclair.com/28. And I will see you in 2 days for part 2 with Kim Doyal.
Now you've been given permission to be more powerful and influence more people. If you've enjoyed this episode, please head over to allegrasinclair.com/iTunes and leave a review. It will help Allegra get the message out to more women that they can punch fear in the throat, show up, and tell their stories. We'll see you next time on the Allegrativity Powercast with Allegra Sinclair.